In 2017, I bought this VW Polo 9N for £400 with 77,000 miles on the clock. I bought it to replace my Skoda Fabia Estate, which was my first car, and apologies if you already know this story because you lived through it and you subscribe to the channel and all the other good stuff. That's literally what happened. That was the story of why I got this car. It wasn't for content, it wasn't for anything. I wasn't a YouTuber when I got this car. I was at university. I needed a car to get me from my place of residence in Bath to my campus. The Skoda had done a great job of that for many years, and it was time to go to something else because I put the Skoda in a bush and it could no longer do its job. So yeah, here it was, the £400 Polo, which originally I didn't even like. I didn't want it. I didn't like the weird round headlights. I didn't like the car that much generally. It wasn't something I wanted. I just had to have something, and this is what I ended up having. And the rest is kind of history. And that history changed quite a bit the other day because as I was driving to Cambridge with my lovely fiance, the car hit 100,000 miles. It's now on 100,404 miles. I've been doing a reasonable bit of driving. What has 100,000 miles done to my beloved Polo? Well, in this video we can find out exactly that. I'll talk to you a little bit about the car and where it is today and what my plans are for it in the future, which I know never means that much because it's anything can happen to this car in the next little while, but I have got some intentions this time, so we'll see how that goes. If you're new here and want to see more videos like this and want to hear more about cheap and fun cars like this that have lasted 100,000 miles, please do hit the like button. I would really appreciate it, and subscribe as well if you're new. It'd be much appreciated as well. So yeah, without further ado, let's start talking about this car. So yes, I've given you kind of the brief history of the car already, but a reminder that in kind of 2018, I started to mess around with the car a little bit more, started doing super cheap modifications. That's the point this Polo project came up. That's how I've got these nice GTI seats in the car. That's how I've got this steering wheel that I got from Wheel Finesse, which is actually starting to die now. It's really time to get rid of. It's how I did the carbon fiber wrap and fixed a whole bunch of other stuff with the car. And the idea was basically I had no money in my bank account and I wanted to start modifying my car. So how, with such limited money in my bank account, and when I say no money, I genuinely mean I was like £1,500 in my overdraft, how could I modify my car and do something fun with it that isn't just horrible and looks tacky and just from Halfords? So yeah, no problem with Halfords, by the way, just like it's one of those standard like Halfordsy mods. I didn't really want to do it. The idea of this car was just to be a stopgap car to get me through final year of university. I had a good job on leaving university, so I thought to myself, I'll get out of uni, buy myself a different car instead, and everything will be happy. I'll have just used the Polo for 1 year, done its job as a run around and whatever, get rid, on to the next one, lovely. It's now 6 years later and the car is still here. I bought it when I was 21 years old, I'm now 27 years old, I'm still running it, it's still cheap on insurance, it's still good on fuel economy, it's still good on everything. And the best part is I'm driving into ULEZ at the moment, it's free ULEZ as well, 2002, but it's still ULEZ compliant. There will be diesel cars around me on the roads right now from like 2014 that have to pay £12.50 when they cross in about half a mile's time. This car, free. What has 100,000 miles done to my Polo? Well, actually, not that much. Okay, ignore the fact that we swapped the engine last year. That was one thing that went wrong. So that engine went wrong at about 98,000, 99,000 miles. So the original engine did 99,000 miles in the car. Pretty good innings, especially when I ragged this thing around, man. This thing is a city beater for me. It just gets from A to B nice and quick. I can zip in between traffic, etc. I probably didn't get, it's gotten zero service history. I'm not sure it's ever been serviced properly outside of what my dad and I have done to it. But outside of that, we've done the important stuff like change the bushes and that kind of stuff. Pretty cheap stuff to fix on the car, basically. Nothing that is groundbreaking by any means. The kind of stuff that you expect of a car that is now 20 years old, and don't worry, I've got a birthday video coming up. Little on that one. But yeah, a car that's 20 years old, you expect to modify the suspension stuff and make sure that everything is still up to date. It's had 20 years worth of getting bashed around by unkind owners like me. Of course it's going to need some work done from that perspective, but all in, I think in terms of like maintaining and running this car, ignoring the engine, I think on service and all that other kind of stuff, in the 6 years I've owned it, I've easily spent less than £1,000. Mate, probably even less than like £700. It's probably been about like 100 to 200 quid per year, absolute tops. Which is why I often find it a little bit frustrating when people just say, oh, that car's got high mileage and therefore it's going to be terrible, or that car's super cheap and therefore something has to be wrong with with it, that car has no service history and therefore it's been violated. Absolutely, there are cars that will fit that bill. But this £400 service historyless car has run absolutely perfectly, minus that one hiccup, for its entire lifetime. It's insane, at least as long as I've known it, obviously. It's passed all its MOTs. There's a few bashes and scrapes around the car, but as you know, like, that's just part of the game when you're paying 400 quid for something like this. All in, honestly, for 100,000 miles, I don't think you would expect it from a driving perspective. From a visual perspective, fine, fair enough. From a cleanliness perspective, I really need to clean the car. It is in a terrible state, but I didn't want to clean it before today because I wanted to show you guys that this is like literally my daily beater. I run this thing around and just eat in it, do whatever. It doesn't make a difference. It's just the car that gets me from A to B, and it's fun content for YouTube as well. This car is living proof that cheap and cheerful is entirely possible. Compared to many of the cars that I've driven in the past few years as well, lots of the cheap ones that are like cheap first cars or cheap dailies and that kind of stuff, I'd have it over all of them. I mean, I've also driven other cool cars as well. So like I drove that A-Class Mercedes and I'd have this over the A-Class every day of the week for the money. In terms of value for money ratio, this violates that. It completely violates that. There's just, it doesn't hold a candle to it. The car is too good. It's just too good. I'd probably be saying the same, by the way, if my Skoda's brakes hadn't failed. I'd probably be saying the same thing about that car. And that is always the one thing, like, it is an old and tired car, and it's likely that something at some point will go wrong. But what's also likely is that it will stay together in some kind of way. I'll still be able to run it. It will be super cheap to fix and super cheap to go on from there. Which brings me on to an important point. Where do we go from here with this car? And it's a really tough one. In the past, I've spoken about a bunch of different projects I could do with this car. One of those is to build it into one of the many different special Polos that I've spoken about in the past. So I could build a 9N GTI. It obviously never existed, but I could build a 9N GTI as an initial suggestion of a car. There was a GTI concept that was built by VW. I could build something to those kinds of specs. I could instead build a club sport, which would mean pretty much fully changing the entire basis of the car. It'd be going from a 5-seat, quite practical car to something that is more track focused. I don't know if I want to do that to the car. It's not really what I use this car or want to use this car for, so I'm not sure. I could also turn it into a JWRC car. So I could literally get another daily and rebuild this like my dad has done with his Peugeot into a JWRC like Polo 9N, Super 1600 engine, blah, 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 which could be very, very cool. All of those things are options. Unfortunately, I'm not that motivated at the moment to do any of those things because I can't bring myself away from using this car as a daily. When I think about getting a different daily driver, which I will do at some point, I can't justify getting rid of a car that is so cheap to own, so cheap to run, so cheap to insure, and is so reliable long term. The only reason I'll end up getting a different daily is because my girlfriend doesn't like, fiance doesn't like this car. But immediate term, I still have to do some cool stuff to this car. And I've said a million times I would like to do some kind of modification setup with this, make it feel more modern, etc., etc., etc. And all of that will come. Honestly, it will come. Maybe in the next 6 months. If not, it will have to be after my wedding, which is in the middle of the year. So after my wedding, when I have a bit more cash available to spend on stuff that isn't like the wedding and rings, that kind of stuff, yeah, I will probably be messing around with this, doing some fun stuff to it, making it feel like a modern Polo pretty much, maybe with my own spin on it as well. But yeah, I'm just telling you guys that immediate term I'm not going to do anything crazy just because I want to use the car as a daily driver. Middle to long term, yeah, maybe I'll do something crazy. Still, either way, no intentions of getting rid of it. Like, I just can't see a reason to get rid of the car. It's too good. But over those 100,000 miles, we've done some really cool stuff in the car. I need to give it its dues and actually take it on a proper journey somewhere, do a road trip around Europe or something like that. It definitely deserves something interesting. Like, it deserves a story. Let's end the video there. I have arrived at my golfing destination and I need to jump out and go and practice my swing. I'm learning to play golf and I absolutely suck. It's crazy. I'm one of those people who just loves to get good at stuff and I'm really not good at golf. And that's why I like it. But I really wanted to just take a moment to appreciate the fact that this car's hit 100,000 miles, worth only 400 quid when I bought it. Messed around with it obviously enough to make it worth maybe 450 quid with all the mods we've done on it. It's just too good. I can't get rid of this thing. Massive thanks to you guys for watching, to the patrons, their support. And yeah, hopefully more to come on this car soon. I'm gonna sort that birthday video out pretty shortly. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. You should probably go and click over here at this point, by the way, because there'll be another video on the Polo and how I put these sweet seats in it.